Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. This is the 839th day of uninterrupted webinar conducted by International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy. Today we have a guest in Dr. Sadaf Ulde, BHMS, and she is a fellowship member in psychiatry. International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy is conducting uninterrupted sessions of webinar since the last 838 days, and today is the 839th day. This is a history in the webinar session by any other organization. This is something rare with homeopathy also. As you all know, the purpose of this session was to discuss the various aspects of homeopathy, the scope of homeopathy and limitations of homeopathy. And there were incidents where some people used to say that homeopathy is only good for children, but it is not right. Homeopathy is good for anything and everything. That is what we have understood from our experiences. As you all know, the International Forum for Promoting Homeopathy was formed by a group of people who loves homeopathy and they are mostly from Gulf countries, and then homeopathic doctors join with them. And as you all know, Dr. Ismail Said is the president of the organization. He is the former principal, and he has having more than 50 years of experience with homeopathy. The other person, the vice president, is Dr. Shaji Kodiat, who is from India, but who was practicing at Philippines during the time of pandemic, the so-called COVID. As you all know, COVID was a condition where the WHO forces all the nations to stop practicing any other system. So our government in India also asked the state countries to limit the same, and the Kerala government enforced it very strictly here. So we as homeopaths have no chance to treat in the beginning, but as you all know, the homeopathic doctors from here went to the court, and the Supreme Court of India gave us permission to practice homeopathy for COVID with certain conditions. But later, when the patient visited to homeopathic doctors done it in style, as just like any other disease, we were able to conquer the COVID without any causality. That is one of the aspects that homeopathic doctors noted with this. As you all know, homeopathy is a very good and excellent science for treating a viral disease as well as any other disease. And this is just like any other viral disease as far as we are concerned. And in the beginning, as you all know, there were some doubt whether homeopathic doctors can treat the patient with comorbidities, but frankly speaking, there is nothing wrong in treating patients with comorbidities, and most of the doctors took it as a challenge, and then we conquered the COVID without much causality. Most of our success rate is nearly 100%, I must say, because not even a single death happened during the treatment of any homeopath. That is something that we have to say. As you know, the COVID situation in China is worsening day by day. But frankly, we have a solution. Unfortunately, we have no way to communicate with the people at China. And if we have, the government of India make a talk with those people at them, the China authorities, so that we people are willing to share our experiences with those doctors who are interested in homeopathy at China or any other part of the world. As you know, there are more than 120 countries have joined in our webinar sessions so far. And this is really a great thing as far as homeopathy and homeopaths are concerned. And as you all know, this is a very fine platform where we can discuss about the details. In the beginning of the COVID era, we used to discuss with those people who were experienced in treating COVID, particularly in Gulf countries, because COVID in India came later than when it arrived in Gulf countries. So that was a different situation when we consider today's situation and the other side. Right? But anyway, that was solved without much problem. The Indian doctors have done in a beautiful way the treating COVID and our results are really excellent. Frankly speaking, most of the doctors have reach the maximum benefit from homeopathy. Most of the people also, patients also got a maximum benefit from homeopathy. Anyway, now let us begin the session. Dr. Sadaf has already arrived and she is now at Canada. She is on a research project there in Canada, and so she had presented so many papers in this forum, and all the presentations were really excellent. I cannot say which one is the best because each and every presentation was excellent, and the subject is also a rare one: scope and limitations of homeopathy in psychiatry with the case demonstration. She had presented so many cases, successful cases with the evidence-based homeopathy, and this is something that nobody can think that homeopathic simple single medicine can do so much of wonders for a patient who is suffering from some psychiatric problem. How beautifully she has shown the case presentation in this forum. So many cases were discussed, and we were delighted to have such a beautiful presentation from Dr. Sadaf Ulde, BHMS, and she had fellowship in psychiatry. She's the director of Health Satya Foundation and Binary Intuition. She is a faculty member at the Other Song Mumbai, and in this evening here in there is she is in Canada, so there is good morning, Dr. Sadaf Ulde. Now it is your time to speak for the next 14 minutes so that we will have a discussion thereafter, and welcome to this forum.
Good morning. Thank you. I will be focusing on homeopathy and how it can help the mental health conditions. So we have in our past seen certain aspects. Again, if I have to very quickly recap, last time we saw a case where how the present condition can affect people, how body images can have an effect on mental health. So on the similar guidelines, today I'll be speaking a little bit about mental health, and also today not only homeopathy, but also I'm going to pick up some parts of the therapy, as I had some question in my personal about what therapy, how the therapy is done. So I'll be taking some parts from the therapy aspects and I'm going to be explaining. Okay. So mental health is a state of well-being in which individual relishes his own ability, can cope up with normal stresses, or can work productively, and is able to make contribution to his or her community. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological well-being. It affects how we think, we feel, and we act. It also helps to determine how we handle stress related to others and how do we make choices. So it is mental health is something that we need at every stage of life, whether it is childhood, whether it is adolescence, is it adulthood. Nowadays, in fact, there is also a specific topic on geriatric psychology. Okay, how retirement and how the changes of life affects the people who are elderly. Okay, so there is an immense research topic that is happening. So where I left it, so geriatric is also a very important factor where we see a lot of changes and a lot of researches that are happening. Okay, so what are the main factors that can prove mental health diseases? Number one is biological factor, genetic factor, chemistry of brain, life experiences, especially trauma or abuse, which we saw last time also. And then most importantly, the family history of mental health problem. Like I very recently saw a case of a schizophrenia since childhood. Okay, and this person, mother was during pregnancy undergoing depression and had a history of severe abuse which affected the child, and it continued to affect him for all his lifetime. So family history of mental health problem is most important. So, in human nature, psychology, we have grounded in four major concepts: the biological theory, the entity of the organism, the need of contact and relationship, the internal capacity of the human being, the biological field theory. Okay. In short, if I have to just conclude and give you a small thing, how are we interacting? How are we interconnected? How are we interdependent? Okay, on the experiences of a social culture, etc., will define how the human nature is cultivated. I remember in one of my psychology classes, we were told that, like how we have folders in our computers, our brain also have folders: pain folder, fun folder, happy folder. So these things that we have in day-to-day life sometimes get connected. We have often seen that many mothers, out of love and the desperate need of um, feeding the child the healthy food, they hit the child. Okay, they use certain methods, like they will take some burnt pan and they'll keep in their hand, or they will hit the child, or they will pinch the child, or they will scare the child, put some images in front of them and say, look, if you don't eat, this person will come and catch you, etc., etc. But these creates a relationship of fear and food. So every time, if you deal with cases of obesities, you will see there are some people who relate to food with a memory. So when they are in scare, they will eat more. When they are in a grief state, they eat more. When they fear that they are going to be punished, they will eat more. So that's the mental dynamic concept of how we can relate to food and yourself. This is how, similarly, in various aspects of a life, you relate to things. Okay. So, in changing this file is a difficult task. Sometimes this is a permanent thing. It's not very easy to, the effect may be nullified, but replacement becomes very difficult. Okay. Then the concept of religion, concept of culture, where there is always a relationship of punishment attached. So these files are very difficult to get deleted because it's been transferred from generation to generation. For some, it may have a positive impact. For some, it may have a severely negative impact. So when we introduce the culture, or we introduce anything to our newborn kids or the adolescents, sorry, the teenagers, we have to be very careful as to what folder are we putting certain aspects. So this is how we there is a theory of personality, how the environment permeates into the self. Okay, when the boundaries are lost or impermeable, the mental emotional disturbance result, which we also call as the weak id or ego. Sigmund Freud described it as id and ego concept. Okay, there has to be an autonomous exchange between the self and the environment. But when there is everything of the environment seeps in, then this is a problem. And this is where homeopathy has a major role, because we have drugs with such minor, weak sense of boundaries like pulsatilla, staphysagria, natriumur, all secondary elements. They have a very weak ego boundaries. And hence everything in the environment can happen. That's why in Fatak, he writes in Staphysagria, Patak writes, morbidly sensitive. That's how he describes Staphysagria. It is so morbidly sensitive that every reaction of the person, every reaction of his every action of the person and the people of his environment, he has a reaction. He has a fight and he has a stomach pain. He has a fight, he's angry, and he will end up trembling. Similarly, with natrium, the ego, the sense of ego is so weak, the identity crisis is so much that, it is dependent on its identity from others. It takes the identity of others, does not develop her own identity, falls in love even with a wrong person, and then ends up disappointed, like Kent writes. So these are the remedies which we have to be very careful. Like in second row, we have elements like lithium carb. Lithium carb and lithium salts, if you see, are the content of many antidepressant drugs used by allopathic medications. Okay, it's the first line of treatment that is used in allopathic medication. So lithium carb is also an important remedy that we use in psychiatric practice. Hydrogen is another remedy. There is this sense where I don't belong to this universe. Where have I come? So most of the cases of extreme depression, extreme psychosis, they will come and they'll tell you, I don't think I belong here. Okay, that is the element from hydrogen. So with all this theory that I've spoken, the interaction of the environment and self, there are three things that happen. Okay, number one is the disownment of a part of a self. Okay, you disown a certain part. Another is a conflict within a person's mind. Is this me or that? Should I do this or that? So we have exact this state, ka rubric in our materia medica, in our repertory, antagonism with oneself, contradictions with oneself. Delusion has two wills. We have an accordion for that. Okay. And a person throughout his life lives in this disintegration, because we are told that you have to be kind, you have to be charitable, you have to be loving. Okay. We forget that human being has both the polarities of love and hate. You must have seen in many movies, in many stories, and from your life experiences, the person you love the most is the person you hate the most at some point. Okay, so we live in this polarity of love and hate. But the problem is, because we are told that hate is a negative emotion, we do not embrace this part. The kindest of king was once very cruel. The story of Gautam Buddha, Ashoka, King Ashoka, right? They were once, sorry, not Gautam Buddha, King Ashoka. Once he was a cruel ruler. And when he saw the bloodshed, he turned into Buddhism and he became extremely kind. So these are the polarities that exist within us. Okay, but we fail to embrace the dark side because we are told that dark is not good. We have been told from very beginning, don't be jealous, don't be jealous, don't be jealous. But jealousy is a human emotion. It's going to creep in. Unless and until we acknowledge that, we won't be able to let go, and we will live in the state of disintegration, and the wholeness of the being will always be missing. That is where Hahnemann said in ninth aphorism that cure should be such that the vital force focuses on higher purpose of existence. Okay, so we need to bring the person to that level, and it's very important. Goal of the therapy or homeopathy is to make this person feel whole again, to bring this disintegrated part as an integration. That's a very important part. The feeling of wholeness, the feeling of oneness in a human being to come. So we'll go through the homeopathic approach on how to deal with this condition. Major cases we all know: mood disorder, anxiety, depression, mental health issues, hysteria, panic. Points to remember when you're taking psychiatric cases. Number one is never ignore the delusion or hallucination or illusion that a patient is giving. They form in itself a rubric or in itself a guidance to a remedy. Be patient in case taking. In case we see one-sided picture where patient is not willing to answer or has no response or is heavily drugged, base your prescription on physical complaint. Do not counsel, do not introduce a therapy, do not tell them do this, do that, unless and until the patient is ready and is in that state. If we try to do that, it will backfire. Introduce counseling or any mind work when person is settled. Case taking is the most important time. Okay, in that you cannot forget history from relative. Okay, and personals also, but history of relatives sometimes is also important because there are a lot of things that the patient might say which is not true. That's his delusion. So you will know the differences. Observe both verbal and non-verbal language. Try to understand the person as it is without interpreting. Sometimes we interpret. Okay, he's doing this action, so this is the rubric. He just wore this clothes, so okay, this is an animal remedy. No, that's not how it works. Do not advise the patient. That is the first thing you have to remember. Let them do their journey. A job of a homeopath or a therapist is always, I tell to my patient, let me hear your pain that you feel. I'll be listening to each of your hurt. And as you take on to the journey to be whole again, I will be besides you. I'm not doing the work of making you whole again. I'm not here to give the solution. I'm here to facilitate the journey. You are the one who's going to make yourself whole again, not me. Okay. We'll facilitate it. We are just the facilitator. Okay. So we hear, we observe, we listen, we are there. Okay. We don't make any changes. We let the body make the changes, let the mind make the changes. So this is a small example of how homeopathic case taking unreveals itself. It's a marvel how when we enter the case taking and when the patient one by one reveals itself, how things unfold. So let's start with a case. Now, this is a case of a 34 years old person with social phobia. He comes in and he says, can you help me? Because I cannot interact with people. I said, what do you mean by that? I cannot go in public. I cannot interact with people. The thoughts that I have are, as soon as I go in the public, makes me completely uncomfortable. I tremble. I tremble when I have to go in public. I lack courage of going in a large crowd. New people cannot meet them or talk to them. I'm unable to take up a job because I'm so scared. If I go for interviews or something, I am extremely scared. People are always making fun of me, and when I talk, they may not understand what I say or what I do. So he has basically come to me where he has absolutely no job. He's striving for job, but he cannot get through the job because of his inner fear, okay, with lack of courage. Okay, he cannot move around. Okay, now what do we do in this case? How do we go about? There are no physical symptoms, there's no other thing that he's mentioned about himself except this fact that he cannot go out, he cannot interact. So at this point I ask him to describe exactly what is happening. So he says, I tremble when I talk, and I may not understand when they say something. They say I'm stupid. I'm not so well educated as other people. I know that. Okay. I'm not good as others. So I have been listening to this and I've come to this point that avoid meeting people. If there is a function in my family, especially with my extended family, I'm not comfortable. I'm very anxious because of my financial status, my educational status, which is not good. They keep calling me names and they treat me like a servant. So I know this will happen. So what I'm going to do is I avoid the function. If I'm forced to go, I will go. And that's also, I'm very scared of every word of what is told to me. So every time I go, I have to be very careful. I take my step very carefully because I know a single wrong word and that's it. They may start making fun of me. Even if it's my neighbor's wedding or very good friend's wedding, I avoid it so that they don't see me. They don't see how dumb I am. I make excuses every time I step in. So here I saw a pattern, and this pattern is a pattern of psychotic miasm, you know, anticipation, acceptance, and avoidance. Okay, the three A's of psychotic miasm. According to sensation method, mentally, psychotic miasm is very cautious. Okay, they anticipate something, they accept their weaknesses, and the whole energy of psychotic miasm is to hide their weakness. Okay, so I see this pattern, but I'm not yet clear that whether this psychotic pattern is of Thuja, Medorinum, Cilicia, or what. I just note it and I keep it aside and explore. Okay, so what is he anticipating? He's anticipating that people will think he's a fool, people will make fun of him. Okay, he has accepted the fact that he's not good enough. He's not as educated as others, not rich as others. He's accepted this is my reality. And his whole focus, his whole coping up mechanism is to avoid the places where his weaknesses will be revealed. And how he does that? By not attending functions, by not speaking up much, just doing as what people are saying, just obeying the commands. Okay, that's how he is coping up with his life. Seeing further, what do you feel deep within you? I feel weak. When I talk, I tremble or I withdraw. Again, we see this avoidance. He wants to talk. I attempt to talk, but I tremble. I tremble a lot. And hence, I feel when I tremble and answer, I make a blunder. So I do a lot of things. I make way and I will avoid myself doing that. Meeting a lot of people is a lot of fear. Forget meeting and talking to them. Even while eating in front of others, I will tremble. And constantly this thought goes on. What are they thinking about me? Are they thinking bad about me? What is going on with them? What is their interpretation of them? I will not start the conversation. If someone talks, I will talk. Others will think I'm not talking right. So I don't talk unless they want me to talk. What? Describe more. I'm just continuing the question, not asking anything at this point. I'm not as rich as they are, not well educated as they are. Now I see another pattern that is coming up. The pattern here is not of the incapacity within. The pattern here is not of the sensitivity. He's constantly comparing how they are, what is their education status, what is my education status, what are they doing, what am I doing. Now see another sentence. Everyone in my family belongs to very good position. I'm a simpleton doing simple jobs. Again, there is a comparison. Me versus you. So I see another pattern. Okay, a pattern of competition, a pattern of survival. They always treat me like I'm nothing. And it's easy to make fun of me, easy to pin on me. I see a language of someone is doing something. First, I see a language of competition, and then there is a language of someone is doing something to me. Someone is doing something to me, and that's constantly happening. So, homeopathic case taking. Now, what's happening over here? Okay. So, homeopathic case taking is like a catharsis process. Okay. This is a point of awareness. Here we see that he's living his life right in front of you. What Fritz Perl, a German psychologist, said, okay, you have to be in the here and the now to heal. This person is more aware at this moment. So the awareness is increasing, and it is said in most of the psychological books or the therapy books or in homeopathy, even James Tyler Ken said that awareness is the first step to the healing. Ken said a well taken case is a half cured case. So this is very important. Now, psychologically, we are seeing two things that are coming up. One is introjection and another thing is projection. Now, what is introjection? Introjection is something that you keep telling yourself every day. You are like this, you are like that, you are like this. These are the voices that are ruling your being. And projection is you project your inner demons on someone else. So we see both of them. Okay. All what we have is his self-talk. They are better. They're having no money. They have a better house. They have a better car. They are dressed well. I don't have this. I don't have this. This is what you are telling yourself and denying yourself. Now, if I have to treat this case, I need to address these issues first. Here we see, you remember my initial presentation where I talked about the contact, that is you and the environment. We see a breach here. Okay. We are seeing the gap between the environment and the self. The self-consciousness is too much with the environment. Now that is the cause and that is the problem of the disease. We have to treat this breach. Once we can treat this breach, you are successful. With a new question, we will make his internal dialogue clear by bringing up his past in the present. So you make the person relive the past. So I said, describe how did this start? And very important, even homeopathically, we know the onset, duration, and progress. Hahnemann said, tolle causum, tolle curenta. Unless and until we address the cause, we cannot treat. So I asked him, how did this start? It was since my childhood, I lived in a small town in a joint family. Father was not very educated and was a laborer in the factory. So he will do small job. Okay. Other uncles were working abroad and making more money than me, my father. See, again, we see this language of competition. My father and other uncles. He's a laborer, others are well educated in a big city, living abroad. Cousins will make fun of us, especially me, my siblings, and my mother. My mother will have to do overwork because father was not bringing enough money. So she had to compensate. As a kid, everyone will ignore me because of the kind of dresses we will wear or how we were, like too small in front of them, and they were big people. Again, me versus you. I'm small, I'm insignificant. Everybody is, taking advantage of my weakness. Everybody is making me feel down. Okay. That is the main experience as a child he's been getting. Then in teenage, I was in love with a girl. And when I asked her father that, can I marry? He insulted. He said, compared to you, there are better suitors. You are a useless person and you're not good enough for my daughter. He was not good to me. He will see me and he will say, shoo, go away, to get lost, as if I was a beggar or someone of not on its level. I felt very low. Again, here you see, somebody is high, somebody is low. Somebody is at an advantage, somebody at a disadvantage. I was not at a very good level. I was very poor and not very good looking. So he completely ignored me. And that proposal didn't happen. This girl got married to somebody else. That's the second trauma he got. So we see a pattern of trauma. Trauma in childhood, trauma in his teen age, and this is the main ailments from. Okay, now we have understood the causation. It started right in his childhood. Remember, last session also I spoke about every mental disease. Forget mental disease, every illness or every belief system is formed in the early childhood. So this early childhood is how the life of the person will be defined. So changes to be made in the early childhood. The languages that we are using with the child should be changed in the early childhood, or else this may impact the person forever. Whether you like the parent of the child or you dislike the parent of the child, whether the child coming to you is a beggar or whosoever, we have to be a little conscious, little aware of what talk are we negotiating with this child. How are we responding to this child? Because that smallest thing on an empty mind will cause an impression. So we have to be extremely careful. Whatever words we use becomes an introjection to this child. We all have some or the other introjection inside us. And some of these introjections are negative, and whether we like it or not, the truth is these negative introjections are given by the people we love the most. If each one of us sit back for 5 minutes, if we take a break and we think of, you don't have to tell it in the forum, but if you just sit back and take 5 minutes and tell yourself, what are my self-talks, my positive and my negative self-talk? What are the introjections? You will immediately go back in your childhood where somebody told you that you're a dark, you're fat, you're thin, you're whatever. Those, and mostly if you will recollect, those voices will be of somebody who was very close to you. Maybe your father, maybe your mother, maybe your own sibling, maybe your uncle, aunts. And these voices become your reality. It's not your reality, but they become your reality. Because delusion is the false perception of reality. And these introjection, if you think back, will be ruling most of your life, and most of your actions will be around it. You can take just 5 minutes for that and see what things come up to you. If you wish to share, you can share. If you don't, it's okay. But this is the reality. Okay. In one of my therapy sessions, like we had a workshop, healing workshop, a very dear friend of mine came up with a very introjection. She's a very, very famous corporate trainer in Mumbai. Okay. She's doing excellent for herself, very beautiful. But her introjection was from a very close relative. And that introjection created a turmoil in her of being that perfect figure to overcome the whole life. She gave a lot of energy to overcome this introjection that was ruling her and then to come out of it. Another introjection she had, which really impacted her romantic lives and everything with her husband, everything was given by her own mother. And then we had to do a work on clearing that introjection. Okay, so these are the impact and the effect on the situation. They're the strong voices in the head. In this particular patient, it was causing him and his relationship to be completely dysfunctional. The voices in his head was so strong that he was completely dysfunctional. Not only in his relationship, in his life, but also in his day-to-day activities. So we have to deal with these introjections. We passively take what environment provides. You don't do it actively, Whenever these introjections are given, nobody's going to make a register. Okay, uncle said this, Fupa said this, Papa said this. No, nobody writes it down. It automatically permeates into your mind. It can be body shaming, it can be gender roles, it can be anything. It can be a simple thing. Your teacher asked a question in school, you raised your hand and it was a wrong answer, and all the surrounding siblings started laughing. Somebody threw a chalk on you. Those get registered, and this creates the block in the energy flow. And this block gets expressed in the body, sometimes in form of a physical illness, sometimes in form of a mental illness. Many cases of PCOD, thyroid you will see these introjection. Many cases of obesity and emaciation, malnourishment, you will see these things. Okay. So causation, everyone, again going back to the place of this patient, he said further that everyone around looks good. They have more money, they are more educated, they're better than I am. In their company, I felt always very low. In childhood, I was very mischievous as a child. So my uncle will hit me very badly. The teachers will hit me very badly. So I started to avoid school. And because of the criticism, he altogether stopped going to school. My brothers, my cousins will say I'm not good in studies and they will call me Buddu, Buddu, Buddu. And that got so registered to me that my grades started falling. Finally, I became a school dropout. What was the feeling over there? I hate to be beaten up, scolded. I felt why they want to tame me. I became a rebel because of the beaten up. And slowly I started hiding from them. I started avoiding each one of them. Now I do what I'm told, although I don't like it. It feels like I'm being controlled all the time. But now also, I'm not financially good. So I'm dependent on them for money. So I have to do what they see. I don't like when someone tell me do this, do that. It really irritates me. I feel very low. I feel I'm not at their level. I'm like a servant. I'm lower to them. I'm poor. So they keep ordering me, and it's my job to get things done. Like friends whom I would play with as a child have a better job and they have moved abroad. So when they come on vacation, they tell me, hey, go get this for me, go get that for me, do this work for me. They don't respect me as a friend. When we go out, all of them, I feel too low and poor. They keep talking about big things in their life, and I have nothing. So now when they come and they say, hey, are you coming for this game or something? I say, no, I'm busy. They all keep talking about their achievements, show off their new things they buy for themselves and for family. I feel I have nothing compared to them. Again, we see this comparison. Somebody is high, somebody is low, somebody at an advantage, somebody at a disadvantage. And we see this psychotic miasm prevailing again. I avoid. I can get there. You know, what are the key points we find over here? Again, introjection. It is a lesson you swallowed whole without using your own comprehension because it comes from an authoritative figure. Mostly introjections are authoritative figures. In his case, it was his uncles, his cousins, and his parents. They are hostile, and the battle is lost before someone even fights. So the worst thing about introjection is this, that the person who gets victimized doesn't even have the understanding that he has been victimized. There's no fight. He accepts it. It impairs the ability. It's detrimental to the person. It creates self-disgust. It's like this. So they become a rebel when things happen not according to their wishes. So they become a rebel and they try to throw out things. Okay. So in the therapy, we make them to call out all their interjections as loud and possible. It's very experimental and we have to wait for a certain time after the remedy has acted and then make these interjections very clear, make them speak it loudly as possible in different tones as possible, and then slowly understand the impact of the introjection on this person. So he says nothing much, then I asked him, tell me more about you. He says nothing much, I'm a simple person, very affectionate, I love my family, I do a lot for my family, I keep handling things, but every now and then I have to face insult because I can't do much and I cannot provide them financially. I feel bad because of my phobia. I feel we are made to live in society interaction, but I'm at so low position that anybody treats me anyhow they want. I cannot fight or react. I feel like I should shout. I should tell them, no, this is wrong. But I'm not at their level. So I keep quiet and I avoid. I'm very attracted to my wife presently, but then I cannot, and children, but I cannot fight for them. You know, I cannot provide them good life. My wife also comments me, like, okay, you're like this, you're like that, but I don't know how to react to her, and I just take it. you know at max, I'll keep avoiding things. Interests and hobbies, I like watching movies, family dramas, like all Rajshri production movies. They are all related to family, staying connected, everyone supporting and living, loving each other, living in a big house. They show big people, how big people they have, everything, and they don't have to worry about things, and they all live in harmony. So I like those movies. So in his own case, number one, the introjections that psychologically we saw, homeopathically we saw, there was a evident me versus you. There is an evident somebody is higher, somebody is lower. There's a feeling of a disadvantage, feeling of being victim. But as a person, we see he has a lot of need of the family. He wants to belong to this group, but he's not belonging to the group. Okay, that is the main feeling. Okay, I want this group. Okay, so and then if we take the rubrics, we have delusion, imagination, look down upon that she is despised, delusion smaller, confidence, want of self, and we see the first remedy that comes is lacuninum. And now everything is coming together. So kingdom wise, we know comparison, me versus you, somebody is doing something, there's a story of a victim and aggressor. So animal kingdom, key source words is, and then in animal kingdom, we know it is the subkingdom of mammals, need to belong to a group, herd, community, society, high and low ranks, somebody is inferior, somebody is superior. Lac caninum is oldest milk remedy with a definite need to please other, with resentment and anger. Feel dirty, feeling worthless, feeling left out and rejected. The key essence of this remedy is I'm worthless. I'm good for nothing. Okay, in Soul of Remedy, Dr. Rajan Shankaran writes that Lac caninum is like the dark sister in the family who's constantly despised and criticized for her skin color. So she feels that she's not good enough. Okay. So I gave her Lac caninum 1M, animal kingdom, mammal, psychotic miasm. Okay. If you read Lac caninum, it is a psychotic remedy. This remedy has in it the nature of a dog as an animal who has to be totally under control and civilized and has to suppress the animal nature and can only express its control and civilized side. It is dependent on its master for food. And so it is out to please him. That's what he kept telling. I was dependent on my uncles for my day-to-day livelihood. So whatever they gave me, orders I had to follow. Even now I'm dependent on my brothers, cousins, so I have to take their orders. The survival depends upon keeping its master happy by performance. It has to perform or it won't be wanted anymore. The master can kick him out. The need to please is the animal side of the Lac caninum. But the dog knows that no matter what, how much it tries to please, it will be never be equal to man. So no matter what I do, how much ever I do for my friends, for my cousins, for my brothers, for my uncles, I will never be equal. He kept saying that. I cannot be equal to him. I cannot be. There is a hierarchy. And in the hierarchy, it is in the bottom. Okay. So they're very passionate. They can be aggressive. They can be defensive. Okay. I feel dirty. I feel horrible. I feel I am not good enough. Self-contemptuousness is present in Lac caninum. I am despised and looked down upon. I am not good enough. That is the key theme of Lac caninum. Fatak says full of imagination, horrors of snake, very forgetful, makes mistake in writing and speaking. Every symptom seems a settled disease which is incurable. Child is cross and irritable and screams, thinks himself of a little consequences. Imagine that he wears someone else's nose, insult. Nose is a symbol of respect. So nose, think he's wearing someone else's nose. Thinks that whatever she says is a lie. Fits of weeping. One body seems disgusting. So lacuninum 1M was a perfect fit for him, which helped him. So things that we need to understand in psychiatric cases, the chief complaint itself is the delusion of the patient. And you have to take this characteristic delusion and then put it in your totality and prescribe. I think my time is over. In fact, I've gone
Yes,
over my time. So I'll stop
yes,
my presentation here. Okay.